Welcome.
Tonight, we leave behind the comforts of the present, the softness of sheets, the warmth of lamps, and we travel far, to a time where life was strict, cold, and quiet in a different way, to Sparta, a name often whispered with awe, surrounded by stories of iron discipline, heroic sacrifice, and endless glory. But tonight, we'll look closer, not at warriors in bronze, but at the people beneath the armor. Sparta was not built for comfort, it was built for order, for war, and for the constant sharpening of its citizens into something less human and more controlled. But war is not what we begin with, not yet. We begin with boyhood, with reeds, and silence, and hunger. Let your mind settle, and imagine waking into the world of a Spartan child. Why it sucked to be a Spartan boy. The sun is just beginning to warm the hills of Laconia. The olive trees rustle faintly, and, somewhere, the Eurotas River whispers over its stones. But you don't hear any of that. Not really, because you're only 7 years old, and your childhood, what little there was of it, has just ended. You've been taken from your home, as all Spartan boys are at this age, and placed in the agōgē, Sparta's lifelong training school. You do not cry. No one does. There is no comfort, no goodbye letter from your mother. There is only a stiff mat made of reeds, a simple tunic, and cold water splashed on your face before sunrise. There is no bed, no shoes. You will walk barefoot across rocky paths, your skin hardening, your feet bleeding quietly in the early days. But no one will mention it. Pain is not to be acknowledged. The training is not loud, not like modern drills. It's quiet, relentless, repetitive. You are taught to steal food, not because it's expected of you, but because it's expected that you do not get caught. If you are discovered, you are beaten, not for stealing, but for failing. Punishment is common, but it is never loud. A hand on the back of your neck, a slap with a reed staff, a stone floor that feels colder the longer you kneel on it. Your meals are thin, black broth, boiled with blood and vinegar. It smells metallic. You eat in silence. You are taught to speak only when necessary, and then only with brevity and sharpness. A well-phrased insult is praised more than a long explanation. You begin to watch the older boys. They are lean, distant, and scarred. You wonder if you'll be like them in a year. You hope so, and fear it. Friendships exist, but always under the weight of competition. Today, you might train side by side. Tomorrow you might be pitted against each other in a test of endurance or obedience. You learn to live with discomfort as if it were a second skin, to ignore heat and cold and hunger, to speak little, to listen, to wait. Every day is a quiet battle, not against enemies, but against yourself. And so the days blur, the same drills, the same bland meals, the same wooden weapons. The rhythm of your life is shaped by rules, not dreams, by orders, not play. And all the while, you grow stronger, tougher, quieter, but somewhere, beneath the surface, you may wonder if this is what it means to be great. Why does it feel so hollow? The 300 who stayed behind the story of Thermopylae is well known. 300 Spartans, a narrow pass, and a final stand against a vast Persian army. But as you settle deeper into stillness tonight, let us explore a different thread in that tapestry, one that is softer, quieter, often overlooked. Not the men who went, but the ones who stayed. In 480 BCE, King Leonidas selected 300 men for the mission. Not just any soldiers, but those with living sons, ensuring their name and bloodline would survive. It was not an army, it was a symbol, and while these warriors prepared to die, others were left behind, men of age, men of value, and the young, still too green for glory. These Spartans were not cowards. They were assigned to remain, to protect the city, to serve the state in other ways, to keep Sparta. Sparta, imagine yourself as one of them, a young man, trained from birth, raised on tales of honor and sacrifice, now standing idle as your comrades marched to their deaths. The silence in the city must have been thick that week. Shields and spears left behind, homes quietly emptied, wives and mothers watching from doorways, knowing what this farewell truly meant. And you are ordered to remain, not because you are weak, but because Sparta needs survivors, not just martyrs. After the battle, as word reaches the city, you hear stories of what happened. How the pass was held for days, how the men stood shoulder to shoulder, how Leonidas fell last. You do not weep. You are Spartan, but inside, you feel the quiet weight of not being there. A strange guilt that you are still alive, In the years that follow, you carry this with you. You train others. You enforce laws. You live quietly, without monuments or statues. No one will carve your name into a rock. But still, you were part of it in a way that matters less to stories and more to survival. And perhaps, on cold nights, when the fire's low, you whisper the names of those who went not out of envy, but remembrance. Because even in Sparta, where glory was worshipped, not all heroes fought, and not all sacrifice was made with a sword. Hidden bones at the Eurotas River. The Eurotas River flows softly through Laconia, just as it has for thousands of years. Its waters move slowly, between reed beds and olive groves, feeding crops and livestock, mirroring the sky in the stillest mornings. But beneath its banks, and in the quiet fields nearby, archaeologists have found something else. Bones. Children's bones. Small, fragile, unmarked by the stories that Spartan men are known for. You see, the grandeur of Sparta was built on silence, and sometimes that silence meant the things not spoken of, not written down. Among these ancient graves, many belong to infants and toddlers, buried with care, sometimes placed in pottery jars. Some are buried near temples, others far from sacred ground. And while most cities in ancient Greece honored their dead with inscriptions and offerings, Sparta did not. Death here was not to be dwelt on, especially the deaths of the young. Some of these remains show no trauma. Others suggest poor nutrition, illness, or deformity. In some cases, newborns were not buried at all, but may have been taken to the Apothote, a chasm near Mount Aegae, where unfit infants were said to be left to die. There is debate among historians. Some believe these accounts were exaggerated by outsiders. Others think the practice was very real, part of Sparta's obsession with strength, with control, with symmetry. And yet, even in a society that prided itself on discipline, someone still placed small bones gently into the ground. Someone still wrapped the infant in cloth, tucked in beside a pot or a bead or a token. Someone still grieved, even if only for a moment. As you sit with that thought, imagine the rhythm of that mother's breath. Measured, restrained, her face blank, her hands steady, as she did what Spartan life demanded of her. But her silence, like the river, carried something deeper. Perhaps it still does. Today, those bones are catalogued in quiet museum basements, numbered, because Sparta's true history does not shine with gold, or echo with glory. From soil, from bone, from what was never said. Spartan women. Freedom with a price in ancient Greece. A woman's world was often small, confined to the home, invisible in public life. But Spartan women were different. They walked boldly through the city. They owned land. They exercised in public. They debated, sang, and even competed in festivals. And from the outside it might seem almost. But as you listen now, resting your head a little deeper into the pillow, consider this. Their freedom was not for them. It was for Sparta. Imagine yourself as a Spartan girl. You are not cloistered indoors, weaving by the heart. Instead, you are outside, running barefoot through dust, lifting small weights, stretching, sprinting, training. Your body is not your own. It belongs to the state. You are being shaped, not for a career or a voice in public life, but to bear strong sons. You must be healthy, tall, tireless, capable of giving birth to warriors. You eat well more than women in Athens. You are educated more than most women in the world. You can own land, manage estates, command respect. But marriage is not romantic. Your husband may live in the barracks. You may see him rarely, and always at night, in secret. Your sons will be taken from you at age 7. Your daughters will be shaped as you were, but only in the space where power serves Sparta. You might hear the poets speak of agōgē, the wife of King Leonidas, famous for saying, "We are the only women who give birth to men." It is a line remembered with pride, but behind it is duty. Spartan women were never idle, but never truly free. They were honored, respected, and heavily burdened. They ruled households, managed estates, and kept Sparta running while the men trained, fought, or died. But they were never meant to shape the future, only deliver it. And so, even in their strength, they carried the same silence that ran through all of Sparta. Silent meals, silent pride, silent grief, and behind it all, the ever-present hum of Sparta's great machine, turning, tireless, and demanding more. Silence, order, and the cost of strength. Sparta, a name spoken in classrooms, etched into marble, and remembered in films with flashing swords and rallying cries. But tonight, we stepped into a different Sparta. a quieter one, a harder one, the one behind the bronze. We began with a boy barefoot and silent, learning to steal just to eat, to endure just to survive. We stood with those left behind at Thermopylae, carrying a quiet guilt in a city that never mourned aloud. We followed archaeologists to the riverbank, where tiny bones told stories never written in scrolls, and we entered the homes of women who walked with confidence, but bore the weight of a nation on their shoulders. Sparta was not chaos, it was order, precision, discipline in every breath. But it came at a cost, the cost of laughter, of comfort, of softness, of dreams beyond duty. And now, as your own breath slows, as the lights around you dim, and the present returns to the room, you can leave that world behind. Because, unlike a Spartan child, you may rest, without fear, without hunger, without someone judging the sound of your sleep. Let the silence now be your own, not one forced by law or fear, but one that welcomes you gently into peace. Good night, and thank you for walking with me through the shadows of history.